Hello everybody and welcome back to week number 8 of stage 2 of the Quake Pro League, where my name is Ketchup, joined by Flea on the desk. This matchup is quite a personal one that I'm excited for, being just generally a big fan of toxjq in general.
Yep.
toxjq versus base. This is, I think, one of the most extreme examples of a distinct clash of playstyles. Tox has been looking pretty damn good recently. Base is just, he's well recognized as being a beast in his own right. But there very much is like a yin and yang playstyle to both these players.
Oh yeah, toxjq definitely has more of an aggressive playstyle when it comes down to it. He really loves the fast champions. Usually he likes the crouch sliding, of course, because, toxjq and crouch sliding, name a better match, right? There just isn't one. And base tends to play a lot more of a defensive playstyle, but not like Dewey does, but he manifests himself and asserts himself on the map strongly and chases down the frags. But then when he's got the lead, he is completely comfortable saying, "Okay, eight minutes left. You know what? I'm gonna run it out. I'm gonna play a more defensive game." So no problems there at all.
Now, I believe we're going into toxjq first, who historically, at least as far as Quake Pro League is concerned, he starts to sort of level up, as it were, as the course of the Pro League starts to go forward. You always expect when toxjq rocks up, he's going to be a complete animal. And it looks very intimidating to deal with. And only really the truly best players in the world are able to kind of put a lid on that kind of speed. And if you're not prepared for that, he just runs rings around you. When Tox is on, very few players in the world, I think, can beat him.
Yeah.
At the same time, it can sometimes be hard to gauge what kind of toxjq we're actually going to get on the day. Sometimes it doesn't even look like the same player. But as I said earlier, as we go on to the later stages of a league or a tournament, Tox tends to start looking better as time progresses. He had a great result last week. This week, he has got one hell of an opponent in base, but if he's on, he could still totally pull it off.
Yeah, and that's one of the big ifs, of course, when it comes to toxjq, right? Our Terminator looks like sometimes maybe his drivers are a little bit out of date coming into a match, because that aim that he's so well known for, the lightning gun, very few people can match him on that weapon. Same goes for the railgun, but sometimes it's just really off. And one of the main concerns that I had near the end of stage 1, the start of stage 2, is that toxjq has just been playing too aggressively and really putting himself in fights and situations where he basically had nowhere to escape to, and he was not at all in an advantageous position to win a fight. So really hoping to see Tox kind of show some restraint, play discipline today, and show us the aim that we've all been waiting for.
Now, it's funny you should say restraint and discipline, because his opponent is Base, a player who kind of personifies that in his game plan. Hard to overwhelm this guy, historically. And even against the fastest players, Base is often kind of just calm and collected and just business as usual. He is one of the more defensive players. He is very much the king of Blood Run, without question, because, go figure, it's a map that kind of just fits his game plan like a glove. But Base, he does everything well. He's got fantastic aim. He makes great decisions. But he stays true to what he wants to do gameplay-wise. It's kind of hard to deter him from that. And, look at these highlight reels. There are some absolutely disgusting moments from Base, because he's capable of it. If Tox is one of those players in a matchup where if his aim is toxic levels of aim, it demands that the opponent kind of they have to match that.
Yeah.
There really is no other way that you can prevent yourself being overwhelmed by Tox unless you can go toe-to-toe with the aim he's bringing to the table. I think Base could definitely be one of those players, all the way. Go back to the 2v2 days where Base was almost like the star fragger of 2v2 in general. Now, that was his breakout game mode. Before that, Base was kind of a player that was a bit of a question mark for a lot of people. 2v2 begins, he starts going on LAN, and bam, Base was born.
I also think that this is really a fan favorite matchup, right? If you just look at players with the biggest followings when it comes to Quake, toxjq, everyone loves toxjq. They love the Terminator, really popular on his stream and everything as well. And the same goes for Base. There's a lot of Russian players that are into Quake, and so I'm sure there's a lot of people in chat rooting for their specific player. So chat, let us hear it. Who do you think should win this matchup? Please spam away a little bit. Show us some love for Base or Tox. And yeah, who knows?
I mean, Tox still has that like ridiculously insane YouTube video where someone just took it from his stream where he got like a 50-0 in deathmatch with Slash. It was a long time ago now, but I still remember watching that. It's just like those kind of videos. If you look at all these frag compilations that the community makes, like, you know, shout outs to the community, by the way. You guys make some insanely good frag movies. A lot of those are just Toxic stream. Like half the video was just Toxic clips. I just take that, take that, take that. Bam! Amazing video. Thanks, Tox.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, absolutely fantastic stuff. We have got the vetoes to go through though, so we can find out what to expect. And to be honest, there are a couple of things here. First of all, Tox has some pretty tame champion picks. First things first, compared to what we would normally expect from him. That said, you know, we've seen him use these champions before. Just because he is known for using high-speed champions doesn't necessarily mean he has to. You know, he is a very versatile player in that respect. But also, the maps. You know, some of these maps are not maps that you would 100% associate with either player. It kind of seems that the champion picks and, at the same time, the map picks, they're kind of like standard either way. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. There's no real distinct advantage either way for me.
Also, is that base vetoing Blood Run? Am I seeing that correctly? Because that is an interesting turn of defense. But yeah,
it's like Tox banning Slash.
But either way, very interesting picks, of course. I like to see Tox on the Sorlag still, because even though he's really good at the crouch sliding, which he's playing no champions of today, he's also very well known for his Quake Anarchy and Sorlag playstyle. So I think we're gonna see some good moves coming out of him today. Then Ruins of Sarnath, we've got Visor up against Ranger. And finally, Molten Falls, Ison versus Anarchy. Ison, a pretty good counter against Anarchy, because if you're not careful, someone as fast as Anarchy can absolutely just run circles around you on a map like Molten Falls.
However, thanks to his weak stack and the fact that he is in fact a light and movement really is kind of his shindig, if he isn't able to get going, Anarchy is a champion that we've seen time and time again get completely overwhelmed. So that's going to be kind of a double-edged sword effect, I suppose. But I guess we'll find out what happens here. Honestly, for me, it's just the thing that Tox is playing some very kind of standard champions, I suppose. You know, the only champion that you'd really associate with being turbo fast when she gets going is Sorlag. And it is on Awoken. So, you know, Awoken is a map that we've seen Tox bring out many high-speed champions for in the past. And, well, I guess we're moments away from finding out how it's going to go between the two players. Now, I don't know who I think has the upper hand here. It is entirely dependent on this first map, so we can see what Toxic is here today. Whether it's the Tox that's not quite at full potential, or whether it's the Tox that is of legendary status that just feels like no one can touch him.
Yeah, we're starting this one off on Base's point of view, and immediately a bit of a confrontation. Base avoiding some of that spit damage. The Toxic coming from Toxic. Here we go. Tox just jumping through, lots of damage coming out. Base in trouble, but Tox doesn't really have the best weaponry to take this fight, and indeed Base can slip through the gaps in the net, and there we go. So far, so good. Base sleeking away from a tricky situation.
It's really impressive that Base was able to survive that circumstance. You know, it was a mixture, I think, of Toxic being quite reserved and not having a huge amount of confidence in really the weaponry he had with the range combined, and Base hitting that one rail that gets Tox to think, right, I have to step back here. Too much of a suicide mission. You know, Sorlag, she's fast, but she's large. It's quite easy to hit her. And now, keeping this 0-0. 1 minute already gone. And the next rotation of items is about to come in. Heavy is going to go into the hands of Base. And he is really stacked. This Tribolt's going to be quite a pain in the backside. Tox, a little bit slow on the timing, and the rail to take it away. This has been a great start for Base so far. And now Tox hitting some good rocket damage. The problem is, he's very weak. And Base is actually shutting down some of these pickups from Banana. Yeah, Tox has a feeling he's there. Doesn't want to give up the angle too easily.
Yeah, he absolutely needed to land that rocket, and he did, of course, because otherwise Base would have just absolutely steamrolled Tox right there. But that 100 damage direct rocket that just killed Base's momentum as he was about to jump around the corner, that really saved the Lizard's life. And now Tox retreating back to the LG side of the map. I think he's got himself rockets as well. I don't know if he's got a railgun at this point. Base being a little protective over the rail. And immediately we're going to see Base, as you mentioned earlier, very disciplined, very restrained, just slowing things down already.
Yeah, Base just going in with the assumption that perhaps now Tox will have a large stack. Maybe this is where he chooses to go in for the heavy. You know, before he sat down there and just set up shop, Base was really looking to see if Tox was going to sit there first. Tox, I think, happy to let Base run in and take that Mega if it means he can get the first shot. Is able to undo some of the damage, actually, and that LG certainly didn't tickle. Now Base in a bit of a tricky position, whether he doubles back or not, and he actually is going to back up all the way, try and reset up for the heavy armor. Has to get himself some armor first, though. I gotta say, both these players have done a fantastic job of being able to disengage and restack. Watch out for the rail, though. Ooh, but the player's not quite able to hit their mark, and Toxic for the angle. Both players hit their mark, though. Dangerous Base is quite weak, and he's able to get the Mega before the final rail comes through.
Tox still railable there for quite some time, because even after picking up the heavy, of course, as you hopefully all know, heavy or your armor doesn't just deplete to 0 before you start ticking away from your health, but it takes away a percentage of all the damage you take. So if Base had landed another railgun shot right there, it would have spelled the end for Toxic. But now Toxic is starting to land some more of the rails. Here we go. That's a good push from the Swede. Can he do anything more? The Tribolt comes out. Base
He's got info.
Hurting.
Oh. He had information over where he was. That rocket didn't quite hit its mark, and the rail's going to miss. Base tries to punish it with the super shotgun. It's still going to be either way. Tox hits the rail. He needs to. However, he's weak. I'm actually wondering if there's the potential for a refrag here. Base does have to give up one of the rails. Fresh off the spawn, though, he doesn't quite have the weapons to get the job done, and thanks to the LG area, plenty of those regular old pickups hadn't been collected yet. Delicious rail, looking for a second one, and now this is dangerous. Likely to give it up. Goes to the super shotgun, and Tox trying to get as much damage as he can, and it looks like a double jump actually was used for Base, just to keep himself in the air just that little bit longer, and it actually paid off. Tox wasn't quite ready for him to land later than he otherwise would have if he wasn't Doomslayer.
That last decision from Tox worries me a little bit, the positioning that he took there, and the fact that he continued on with that fight. That was extremely risky. Small armor just spawned. Base actually not interested in going for it. See, that's exactly what we were talking about. The disciplined, slow play. Base could have gone back for that small armor, but that would have put him in a bit of a risky position. So instead, he just left instantly, set up a little bit of a trap to do a tickle of LG damage to Toxic. And all damage, of course, it adds up over time. Keeping your opponent's stack low is about the best thing you can do.
Tox really trying to get one of those rail shots out of Base before he can move in to take the Mega, just to make it that little bit safer. But as we can talk about this, there's still a nice divide between the Heavy and the Mega. So as is the way on Awoken, we're going to set up shop near Heavy and see if Tox decides to fight for it. But it looks like now Base sitting and waiting for it, but in and out before we can even think about what's happening next. And we're kind of back to where we began. You know, both players on an even situation. That was fantastic rocket. But potentially Toxic being a bit preemptive with the acid spit. That was more just a area denial, I think. I think it was trade one acid spit just to make sure we get the Mega.
Base not ready for that shot at all, just barely showing his face, and Toxic taking advantage of it to the fullest extent. Heavy is about to spawn. Toxic is going to come in extremely aggressively. Base knows he's outstacked still after landing that railgun shot. That's a good one. That's going to basically deplete the entirety of that Heavy. But Toxic hitting back like a tank. And down goes Base. Those are some excellent rockets from our Terminator.
Doomslayer's corpse just rebounded like a pinball off that wall. I love it. It's my favorite thing with the rail. It just sends the opponent's model so far. It's just the power. The sheer power. The 2-1 now for Tox. This is quite a slow-paced game, but the shots, I mean, it's all about those clutch rails, isn't it? It's all about that one important shot, just to be able to finish it or set up for something important. It has been a battle of the rails so far. 6 minutes on top. Base being really aggressive. 4 seconds away from Mega spawning, actually. Does Tox even sit around? Looks like Base actually pushing his way forward, and he's not able to quite get a grasp on where Base is going to be. Hang on a minute! Has he overstayed his welcome? The rail barely misses. Was quite a difficult ask to land a shot like that, but Base making the play. Instead of sitting around near Mega first, get the damage, put the pressure on. And even after he put the pressure on, Tox clearly thought he was going to run off. Oh, no, he's juggled. Perfect play. And no, Tox! The rails! This is the Toxic that we always talk about. You think you've got him dead to rights.
How?
And he hits impossible rails.
How do you do that? You just get floated almost off the map, and Toxic's like, oh, there you are. Let me just shoot a rocket your way, and then bam, the rail to finish it off. And that's exactly why Tox is one of these fan favorites. He just pulls these kinds of things out like it's no big deal whatsoever. And now he's again a frag in the lead with 3 minutes left to go.
Doesn't quite get the rail though. Oh, but that one's on return. Base forced to retreat here. Doesn't quite get the rail, but that absolutely would have been a kill shot. And it's too risky to fight for the Heavy. Mega is miles away from spawning too. Tox in the perfect position, and Base kind of really having to back up and lick his wounds. Tox making the choice to go in and pressure. I love this choice because he knows he has a Mega to retreat to.
Yeah.
And he can deny the lights.
That's the kind of aggression that I like to see from Tox. Very calculated, knowing that he's got somewhere to go back to, resources to collect, even if he does end up taking damage. And it works so well for him, getting another frag on the board. And now Base, 2.5 minutes to go for 2 frags against a slippery Sorlag with a lot of stack. That's going to be difficult.
And Tox is in a great position to deny that rail at the same time. You know, at the end of the day, it has been quite a strong battle of railguns this entire way. And if Tox is able to spend, you know, the rest of this map kind of set up shop near a part of the map that Base is really trying to get to because he really wants a railgun, he should be able to have access to it now. Tox kind of just has that range advantage whenever he wants it. And now he can start to be a little bit more patient if he wants to. He's only 2 frags in the lead, so by no means is he out of dodge, but slow down taking these insane shots. He's going in for the acid spit. He is conceding a lot of damage though, but he hits a rail on Base. Narrowly misses a shot, looking for another one. And yeah, just had frames of an angle, and I think even Tox wouldn't have taken that shot just in case.
Right now, Base down below is gonna go up the bounce back towards the railgun. Toxic gets a really good read, but no damage on that rocket. Mega was taken, and Tox is so stacked. Base has to play a careful and considerate game right now. He can't show himself too much.
He saw an inch of his shoulder.
Ooh, and he almost landed another one right there. Toxic is just dominant right now because not only is he cycling both of the major items, but he's continuously putting out the damage that just stops Base from ever getting comfortable or being able to really turn things around.
Oh my god, Base! You know he was not ready for that.
Nope.
I guarantee he was saying up there, looking for the LG, and then before he could even start firing, where did my life go? Where did my stack disappear to, Flea?
It tends to be a general principle in Quake that you don't go up a bounce pad when someone's waiting above with a lightning gun, but when you're Toxic, those principles, they're more like guidelines, you know? You can just take it up there, and if your LG is as good as Tox's, well, sometimes these magical moments do happen. And now with 30 seconds left on the clock and Tox is just so absurdly stacked, Base can't even wait around for Mega. He just doesn't have the time. He loops back around for it, but that's another Tox, 5 seconds gone.
Great location to waste time and stall. Knows he's round, but he has the stack. And if Base wants to pressure, you know, he's actually swapping to the LG was a really good choice there from Tox. Oh god damn it, Tox!
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to see. Base, he has given up. He's gonna call the GG. Tox, he is just gonna add one more to his already sizable score and call the GG
You know what would have
himself.
been funny? If Tox hit rails like that the entire map, and the moment Base is standing still, he missed one of those rails.
No.
That would have been the funniest thing.
50% railgun from Toxic, 45% from Base, so nothing too shabby there either. But in the end, it is Toxic who had the better control of the items if you take a look, and just overall did more damage.
And it was the severity of those rails, even if... And that wasn't a bad accuracy ratio on rail by any stretch of the imagination, but it was when the rails connected, they were the important ones.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't the kind of rails that are a bit wishy-washy that, that's fine, they'll just go and restart back up. Most of the time when Tox desperately needed to hit a rail, like the amount of early fights that broke out where most players out there, Base, he made the right choice. You know, he would go in, he would set up a bunch of LG, he would hit really good LG, and you're like, right, there's no way Tox is surviving this. Base has made the play, he's got the weapons for it, this should be fine. The only thing that will save Tox is if he hits this impossible rail right now. And because it's Tox, he's able to do it.
Like right here, bam.
It's this element of Toxic that is applicable to very few players in the world overall, I think. That you have to expect them to hit these otherwise impossible shots, otherwise they'll die, and they can hit them consistently. Tox is really among those players because it's ridiculous. There's no other word for it. I remember talking to Cygib when he had to play against Toxic at QuakeCon. Now, they had their prize match together. I was talking to Cygib after the event, and he said, when you play someone like that, who is just hitting absolutely everything, it's like, what can you do? You know, you have these players dead to rights, you have them set up, and they just hit absolutely every shot that just feels like it can't be done consistently, and they do it? What can you even do in that situation?
I'm very happy we got to see the final frag on stationary opponent is one of the highlights of that matchup, but of course it was Base just throwing in the towel a little early.
Nothing can be done.
Yeah, not something you see him do very often, and exactly what you said, so true. Tox has this uncanny ability to just pull through when he has to and land the clutchest shots that you can imagine to pull through, and that's exactly what won him the first map, and he's looking pretty good right now, because we've said at the start, both of these players are, at least Base is in a very good position right now. Toxic, he's definitely above like the ones that are ranked towards the bottom of the EU side, but he's definitely also not completely safe yet either. He's only around, I don't remember the exact amount of points, but he's not that many points above people we were talking about earlier as being in somewhat the danger zone for having to fight in a relegation match. So Tox is definitely going to be happy with any points he can get.
Going up against a player like Base, though, and being able to get at least one map at the very start, it's... Considering Tox is kind of within the higher area of those players, one map win when other players are getting 3-0'd and stuff like that, automatically better for him.
Absolutely.
However, with what we saw on Awoken, if he can maintain that string of momentum, then there's a strong possibility that he could, in fact, take more maps throughout this series. I said at the very start that we kind of need to see that first map to see what kind of Tox is showing up today. And after Awoken, it looks like it's toxic.
It's
like,
a good Tox.
This is the Tox that, we all know. And if you're in Base's situation, there's always ways he can come back. Like, by no means is this going to be a write-off. It's just how many times did those fights happen in Awoken where it's just the impossible shots kept coming out, Flea. They just continued. But this is one of those maps where it's a bit more of a traditional matchup. It's going to be Ranger versus Visor here for Tox. Tox hitting rails like he has done. The fact he has a piercing sight does make me a little bit nervous for Base, but Base has the burst and he has the mobility. Base has had some miracle orbs in his time, and he is a very smart player, so the mobility of the orb will only ever be an extended arm to that, I suppose. But here we go. Checking out Toxic's perspective first.
Pretty big delay of the very beginning between the two items. Heavy is up so much earlier than Mega is, and it looks like Base will be the one to take advantage of that. He's now got the stack advantage over Toxic. He's gonna rocket jump right up, and that's an excellent rocket to send him right back. And I feel like that's one of the things that Base does as a player that's a little bit predictable. He's one of those players that almost always goes up for the rocket jump there, I feel like, and Toxic probably is aware of that too, so good defensive play from Toxic in a situation that otherwise could have turned out to be really bad for him.
100 damage prediction rocket without piercing sight being used is always a bit of a feels bad. Now piercing sight being used to just set up perfect string of LG. Does give up one rail. Unfortunately, Base wasn't able to get out kind of like a bonus rail that would have put Tox at 3 stack. And it looks like he should be able to beat him to the punch at Mega as well. Yeah, Tox misses the rail. Base just about to collect a rail of his own if he plays his cards right, but I think he's just trying not to overextend too much. Now Tox with a small lead. Question is, what did he do with it? Ruins of Sarnath is a map that Tox has often been a little bit inconsistent on in the past. This is one of those patented maps that sometimes he has been too aggressive on.
This is looking good for Base though, because the one thing that set this comeback, if you want to call it, even being one frag behind in motion, is that he managed to get Heavy before he died. So even though he went down, he denied Toxic the Heavy, and then instantly got on Mega upon the respawn, and that has left Tox with very few resources to work with, while Base is just looking absolutely stacked. Probably gonna drop down for Heavy. Tox doesn't have much ammo to work with at all. Out of rockets, got some LG. He's just gonna vacate the area. He knows he doesn't want to stick around and go for the miracle rail. But Mega is still 6 seconds out. Can he stick around for that? I don't think he can.
It's too risky. There's just way too much time on the clock for Tox to be able to get in and out without taking any damage, especially as he'd run out of rockets, so it was a really bad time to run out of ammo. Has the piercing sight, looking for some rails. Hasn't really hit any of those crazy rails so far yet. There have been attempts, but fundamentally it's nothing that's going to deter Base from making the chase. He's only one frag behind here, and that's nothing really to care about, especially with a stack difference the way Base is looking at so far, and is the one in control of things so far. Tox really having to get some rockets. Has finally been able to get a little bit without putting himself too much in harm's way. No need to go and actually grab the rocket launcher by itself thanks to ammo that exists. The piercing sight, what can he set things up?
Yeah, Tox definitely using the piercing sight off the bat because he knows that Base is in control and is really dangerous right now, especially with the orb. Toxic railable right now, so is Base.
Wow, they were some important rails to make Base second guess his advance. Goes off to get Heavy.
Toxic won that fight, but Base had the better positioning right afterwards. So Base could just drop down, get heavy, and now position himself for Mega right off the bat. So even though Toxic did most of the damage, he's still in the back seat. And Base, even though he's a frag behind, is firmly in control right now. But those rails, that can change control so quickly.
Tox is starting to hit more of the rails that we're familiar with. I imagine it's quite a big ask to just say, yeah, just keep hitting rails like that, you'll be fine. Especially when they're as tricky. Right, the initial attack comes through. Orb is using the rail as well, but the cooldown in between shots is going to be the death sentence there for Tox. Hit some good shots, Base fresh off the spawn, tries to get some rail damage there.
That orb threw him off a lot. Toxic switched to rail, hoping to get a shot from quite a bit of a distance, but then before he could do anything...
My word, one shot short of surviving that one.
3 points of health. Tox, can you push in for the instant refrag? At this point, Base has got a heavy to his name, 2 health bubbles, so definitely not looking too bad, but Toxic, if he can get a weapon, get a good position, he does secure himself Mega. This is not looking bad for the Swede right now. I think he's got all the weapons he needs. LG, rail, and rockets. Now he just has to find Base. He's got the piercing sight. He actually used the piercing sight, so he knows exactly where the Russian is.
Oh, he was looking for the rail shot, which should give Base pretty strong reason to believe that he knew he was there. Therefore, piercing sight's probably been activated. It's not the kind of thing where you randomly go down and shoot a rail in that particular angle.
Yeah.
But Tox has a really fat stack to work with. Base trying to be nice and defensive. And one of the ways he can try and undo the efforts that Tox has been able to build up on the foundations is just hitting that one rail that's not returned, and then that's it. You know, you've kind of evened the odds to a degree. Orb is ready, which is going to help in the fight if it breaks out. Heavy spawning here. I think this heavy is going to be really important for this one. Oh, the distraction on Tox works like a charm! That was one hell of a distraction, Dire Orb.
That was a beautiful and high-level play, just making Tox think that he was going to go straight for the item rodder, but then instead just turning the corner, and bam, here I am, ready to go. Tox just not ready for that at all. Base does have to give out a Mega though, so this is buying Tox a bit of the resources he needs. Base setting up defensively. Toxic not falling for the trap though. Now heavy, up in 10 seconds. Base has got the better positioning, he's got all the weapons he needs. Tox, is he gonna make a move on this? This is a risky play after that rail, he shouldn't. Toxic landing another one, still sticking around, looking for more damage.
As long as he can shut down the heavy, Base is going to be happy to get in and out. We've long past the halfway point of this map so far, so if Base can just kind of keep this defensive game going, making life pretty tricky for Tox, keep it 3-1. Base should be able to comfortably get in there. However, missing rails like that, he's got to be really careful because Tox will just go in and punish those missed shots, now making it 3-2. If Tox can get a decent spawn here, there's a real potential. Looks like he hasn't quite got a grasp on where he is, though. Heavy has spawned. Tox just trying to figure out where Base might even be in this situation. But piercing sight's about to come back, so he's not going to have that problem for long. Good shot now, Base. A little bit tender. Has been able to collect one of those light armors. That's definitely important, but he's looking for the rocket jump. Yeah, Base doubling back. Does not want to mess around with that at all.
Yeah, and Base knows that any wasted second actually works in his favor, right? Toxic just has control of the middle section of the map, and Base is just like, you know what? I don't have to do anything, but then the moment he shows his face, he eats a rocket, and I hope he doesn't take the wrong conclusion from that and think that Tox used the ghost, or the piercing sight rather, because then he might be in trouble. That's a lot of good damage. Base just has got nowhere to run.
Now Tox faking him out.
Yeah.
Oh, the fake out. I want you to hear me because I want you to go the other way. Thanks, mate.
Beautiful play. That's psychological warfare in Quake. Absolutely brilliantly done from Toxic, and now he's got a convincing stack as we are entering the final few minutes of the match.
Very much, oh, and he goes in. Can Base get it? Looking to change the machine and misses the rail shot, punished heavily! And he actually wins that fight, Base!
Oh, and Base is like, oh, a Mega. Well, that's nice that just happened to spawn when I was walking by. Toxic, one more bullet would have done it, but he backed away. Not sure how low his opponent was, and missing the rail shot exposed him to the damage he couldn't afford to take.
That was just a... Oh. That was, by all accounts, though, a phenomenally done fight from Base.
Yeah.
He really did just play that masterfully. Problem is now, even before I can finish saying that, he's back to being in danger. However, keeps the lead. If he can just bide time and maybe try and heal up a little bit on his regular stack. Tox has a really big stack to work with, though, so if he gets caught in a bad position now, Base is just mincemeat.
And that was not a piercing side rail.
Oh! Where are you going, mate?
That was, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Unless Tox just had this like galaxy brain, but assuming it very much was just a simple chase down there. Fake out.
Yeah, there we go. Base. Oh, actually deals a nice amount of damage with a tribal. Toxic. He has to pursue this one. He knows he wants the frag now, but showing the restraint that I'm happy to see him do, because if he would have chased that, he actually would have given Base an avenue to just jump right back down and steal Happy away from him. So Toxic, a very disciplined, very professional move right there.
Especially on Ruins of Sarnath, you know, just to say again, this has often been one of those maps that Tox has been kind of hot and cold on when it comes to too defensive, too aggressive. You know, it's been one of those maps that in a competitive setting we've seen him kind of really find his feet in, I suppose. But here comes some rails, 2 more, and now just in time for the 1-minute warning, and a solid stack takes the lead by 1. And now, yeah, Heavy is taken, so Tox has perfect timing on that. Looking to get some bonus damage before he backs off and then takes the Mega. Wow, another one. Base completely shut down. And if he gets the frag here, which he should do, he can now both get the Mega and create a massive offset in between the 2 items.
I like the respect that Tox gave him there, though. He could have just pushed in straight on the stairs, but he knew that the heavy nail gun is still a danger. If he can get this one, that'll be it. That's GG, done and dusted. Toxic just with 3 frags of a lead in 20 seconds.
Oh
Make it
God.
4. Base. He's gonna go down. This is gonna be 2-0 for Toxic already, and there's still 1 more to go. Nice read.
That is a GG right there. Tox playing it perfectly at the very end. This is one hell of a result for him. You know, we've said that Tox historically has progressively just got better and better as the later stages of a league or a tournament, whatever the case may be. He just levels up, you know, the longer it goes on. And stage 2 just seems to be kind of maintaining that presence that Tox... He's just defeated Base minimum 2-0.
Yeah.
That is one hell of a player to take down. And in the manner of which he's done it. You know, he's been able to do this in a very Tox manner. Just fantastic plays all round. His decision-making, though, it is starting to get better. Like, it's not just about overwhelming you with crazy movement and wonderful aim. Like, there are so many more moving parts to this. Like, you know, the early Tox of, like, Quake Champions, where it's kind of like just overwhelm you with insane accuracy. There are more layers to it now.
He's definitely evolving as a player, and I think he's going to be happy to add this one to his list of wins, because he's been struggling a little bit in Stage 2, as we mentioned earlier. He's beaten Awoken and CNZ so far, but then again, he lost down against some absolute top names, Kilson, Cooler, Cypher, so being able to take Base down a notch and win with at least a 2-1, I mean, that's gonna be a mighty good start for the final weeks of Stage 2.
And it wasn't there were some wonderful like plays in this highlight reel. You know, this was a fantastic fight from Base. You know, this by all accounts was kind of looking to be Tox's as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a piercing. You were right. It was a piercing sight shot. But yeah, I mean, just in these replays that we can see right now, there was some absolutely wonderful fake outs.
Yeah.
Not only rocket fake outs to bait Base into moving, but general movement fake-outs too, mostly within the center of the map. You know, when Base was kind of in that really... It depends on whether it's a sweet spot or an awkward spot. It really depends on what your stack is looking like and whether you're the one that's trying to defend or stay alive. But yeah, some fantastic plays there from Tox. So minimum 2-0. Now moving into our final map. A 3-0 would just be, I mean, great. Absolutely fantastic. Base, he's not desperate for points anymore. Of course, he's going to want points as we move on later and later, because the more seeding he can get, the better. All day, every day. But at the end of the day, if he's able to get anything, I mean, anyone wants to place higher on leaderboard. But if Tox gets a 3-0 and that massive injection of points, he's fine. He's totally fine.
Yeah, I think so too, because Tox, as we mentioned toward the start, he is... for the time being, he's safe, but he's not that far above some of the people that are at risk of having to face the relegation matches that he can really just rest on his laurels. So Tox, he definitely still has his work cut out for him, but if he can take down 16 points today, that would be huge going into the final weeks.
Oh, for sure. Like, if he gets a 3-0, I am not only for today, but for the previous series that we've had throughout the night. I'm really curious to look at the end of day leaderboards. You know, when it's all updated and it's all correct. I'm curious to see kind of how today's results have kind of shifted that balance of power. Been informed, we're loading into the next map. Thanks for joining us so far. This is going to be map number 3, Molten Falls. Base is the one going out with the movement. Very kind of different. Normally, Base would be the one that comes out with a more sort of stable champion versus someone who's high octane, right? Normally, this would be a bit of a mirrored effect, but Base bringing out the Anarchy, Tox with the Ison. If Base can deny that final map just to have the last laugh, that'd be grand, but you know, Tox is gunning for that 3-0.
Yeah, definitely not the picks that you would expect from these players. I would like to see the order that the decisions were made in, because what I can totally see happening is that Base ends up picking Anarchy first, and then Tox just picks Ison to counter it. That's a lot of damage being exchanged. Tox definitely getting himself in the clear by landing that final rail, or he could have absolutely been in trouble. And another one, the pixel that Base shows his face around the corner. Tox is ready for a Mega, not up for another few seconds. The offset is hugely helping the Russian player right here. Toxic manages to get out, not railable, but he's still pretty damn low. Oh, this is risky.
I was about to say, it looks like they might meet head-to-head, and Base gets the point-blank rocket shot to secure first blood. There's a real potential here to start something special. Tox with the LG. The injection gets used, and thankfully, just in time for the heavy. To not only get the frag, but have a really impressive stack left to fight for the Mega at the same time. Tox now forced onto the back foot quite early. Interesting to see how he comes back from this, if at all. You know, Base, there's a real chance here to run away with it. Great rail to start things off. That rail was going to be quite the objective at the very beginning when Tox respawns, I think.
And that's gonna help him out a lot, because now Base hardly has any armor to his name, manages to pick up a little bit. I like the turret. Plays down onto the heavy, but Tox just doesn't really capitalize off of it. I thought that he set the turret down, he's gonna drop it around the same time to guarantee himself picking up that heavy, and then just push forward with the super shotgun, because we all know shotguns are Anarchy's biggest weakness, or at least one of them. He just absorbs the damage, and with his tiny stack, he can go down surprisingly easy. Here we go. Tox using the super shotgun. He goes for it.
Ask and you shall receive.
Just as we're talking about it, Tox just stands up, pulls out the super shotgun, and he makes some magic happen. 2-1. Base 1 frag in the lead, but Toxic.
Really good rail. Absolutely phenomenal rail. And actually, Tox going in. I mean, that was quite a brave choice. I know, if Base wasn't prepared for it, there was potential to get a free rail into whatever comes next. But Base, those rails in that exchange were absolutely fantastic stuff. And, ooh, there's been some good rails all round today. You know, Tox, he still has to be really careful, though, because now he can go in for the kill. That one missed rail when Anarchy, you know, he smells it. He's ready for it.
I see. These are the things that I worry about sometimes when I see Tox play. Those two lost decisions to take those fights, and here again he's just gonna push in for heavy. He just gave up 3 frags, basically unnecessarily. He didn't have to do any of those. He wasn't really being pressured, but he just puts himself out there with nothing but the railgun or an LG he picked off spawn, and then he puts himself in such a risky position, and Base has been taking excellent advantage of that. So Toxic, he needs a bit more discipline, I feel, sometimes, because he's giving up a lot of free frags right now.
And now Base is just looking to disengage these fights. He's got his injection. Armor's going to be on the agenda, though. Looking likely that Toxic might be able to collect it. Yeah, he's in and out. Trading a light for a heavy. But that is going to be 2 lights, so not the end of the world for Base. However, immediately taking quite a lot of damage. The preemptive injection just to try and give himself as much stack as possible. And some excellent rockets. Base is just playing this really well. I'm loving his aggression, but I'm also just loving his rocket placement.
Also getting himself a little bit of an overstack going, because right now his limit of health is already at 105 instead of just a flat 100. So by the end of this map, we could absolutely see Base get up to like 115 if he keeps using the injection quickly. Toxic now has got top control, did manage to pick up heavy. Base doesn't have any overstack to his name right now. Toxic is gonna let him take the Mega. A little bit of a strange decision. Could have set up a successful trap right there, but Base outmaneuvered him slightly, and right now Base knows he's got the lead.
Using the actually the boost of speed from the rail to know that he's going to beat Toxic to railgun location before he's potentially ready for it. That was a great placement there from Base, actually. Got a real cheeky shot off, but he's weak. Not that it really bothers him, clearly. The second he's put behind, it's just time wasted. Now, by all accounts, this should be a frag given up. However, oh my god, Base, are you going to actually win this 1v1? Being that weak, that would have been absolute insanity. Rocket's coming through, gets the rail as well. You know what? That's still a bit of a win for Base.
Yeah.
Did he got Tox that low that he can't press? He cannot press the advantage.
Base is gonna get Mega. Toxic, I don't know if he knows when Heavy is. He's gonna hear it though. I hope. Yeah, okay, he's not gonna waste too much time getting on to that one.
I'm honestly just impressed that Base was able to
yeah, absolutely
lose the frag, but by doing that much damage beforehand. That was just fantastic jukes and movement. And the strength of Anarchy, you know, the speed and the mobility he's got, he can really run rings around you sometimes. Normally, that's Toxic's job.
But now Base, he should be the one to pick up Mega. He's got the small armor as well. If he's fast, he can actually put out some pressure on the heavy pickup. But he doesn't seem interested in playing that aggressively just yet. And this is again Base. He's got the lead. He's feeling comfortable. He wants to get at least that one map win. Oh, beautiful rail right there. Just peeking and landing the damage.
It's the perfect defensive player's rail, you know, the one that kind of makes the aggressor second guess their advance.
Yeah.
But when they have a deficit like this and there is time running out on the clock, you kind of feel like you have to try and make something happen. So it's like, you know, there is the potential for damage. You just have to try and be as elusive as possible, but really you can't disengage. And that's kind of exactly what Base wants. He wants you to feel forced into making an advance so that he can get that rail on you, or that one rocket that just makes his life much easier. Bam, he's got another frag, and now he can be even more defensive.
Toxic denying the small armor right there, but interestingly enough, not while he is in control at all. So those kinds of decisions, they might actually end up hurting himself. Because right now, Base, again, walking away with another frag. There's 3 minutes to go. And Base has a 5-point lead. This is going to be very difficult, particularly because Base has got that speed. If he just has to run away, he can just stay away from Tox for years even. And Toxic, he has no explicit burst damage ability playing as Iceland. Doesn't have any speed or movement abilities either. And he just gives up another frag, so that's 6 to go. And this is going to be difficult, if not nearly impossible.
Yeah, the turret's serving basically zero purpose throughout the course of this map, so the use of ice hasn't had a major impact on it. And then you kind of just naturally compare that. I think that was Base trying to... I almost kind of half detect that he was trying to jump off that ledge to make sure that Tox didn't get the frag. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But Base knows he kind of really has this in the bag. This is another one of those cases where I think he needs to royally slow down by some degree for this to come back. If Tox is able to keep this momentum train rolling, there is potential that he can come back. But on these larger maps, it is kind of hard to just lay that snowball effect. Yeah. You can see that Tox, there's real pace in his gameplay here. And at this point, Base is unable to really shut this down. And now he's trying to run away, doubles back, maybe he tries to double up on the frag, but he can't hang on. He has been able to delete a lot of the armor, but it's not going to matter too much purely on the basis that Tox, he's about to collect heavy. So you know, that rocket, it was a cute idea to try and maybe steal a frag away, but just like that, Tox is in a position here to make a comeback. He only needs 3 frags and about a minute and a half, give or take, to get it done. How does Base run away? There's really no armor to run away to. It is this movement that is keeping him afloat. And the fact that he's constantly able to... Look at the fact it's just gone. In and out.
You saw a moment, a brief flicker of Base just flying by on Toxic. There's no way for him to catch up. He really just needs to land the rails.
Yeah,
that's what he has to do. If he can land one rail, because Anarchy doesn't have a lot of stack, and then another one before he can get out of the room, he's got a shot. But otherwise, Base is just going to keep playing the runaway game.
This is putting a lot of pressure on Tox and his ability to land rails. Like, Base, this is a runaway game. This is a I don't even want to look at you anymore match. He has to play this runaway game for as long as possible. You know, it is in many ways like his reward for just how many frags he was able to get beforehand. But hang on, Tox. Potential for an angle here. Nah, didn't have the right weapon out. He had the LG out just in case he came round, but look how quick Anarchy is gone. Like, this is what happens when fantastic movement champions meet a utility champion who's all about, you know, setting things up. He is hitting these rails, though, which is going to potentially make life difficult, but Base, he's wasting so much time, and he was able to steal the heavy. So this is just, you know, the gift that keeps on giving. He has to be aggressive.
Whoa.
Can he finish it? Oh my god, what is going on?
That was a sick rail from Tox right there.
Oh, the potential for it, Base. And now the ball's really in Tox's court to make something happen. Base has to be careful. Now, 20 seconds on the clock. If he gets a good spawn and he's able to get some stack along the way, maybe, but I think realistically this should be Base's map.
Yeah, I don't really see Tox being
Just
able
too big.
to get anything more done with the final 5 seconds. At this point, it's a mathematical... Oh, finally!
He just
The
needed
turret
an
did
extra
something.
few seconds. That really is. He just needed to be in a position where he didn't concede that one frag too many. And it was a combination of Base's absolutely beautiful runaway. You know, within the kind of the last 2 minutes on the clock, the fact that Base didn't even give up a rail angle until about a minute and a half of being chased. That was a combination of hard work at the start to create a massive divide. And then at the very end, when there was a potential for a comeback there, Base's just flawless anarchy movement to deny anything that resembled a rail angle. It was just a collection of good things.
I'm very happy to see that at least the turret did something. Even if it was only at the very end, it did land a few points of damage.
Did feel kind of like a championless match for most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Base just played it better. He had the speed. He managed to get the lead pretty early on. I feel like this was the first map we saw where Tox made the same mistake that I've been talking about again, where he just really put himself too far out there too often and just didn't have an escape route and pushed when he absolutely didn't have to. Like, you're gonna start seeing it happen shortly.
It happened very early on, purely on the basis of he was being quite eager early at the start of the map.
Look at this one.
Yeah.
Why are you there? You've got 10 points of health. You're gonna jump behind him.
But then
and this one too.
But then we look at these frags that happened early that were very unnecessary, that were kind of just easy frags for Base, you know, free meal ticket, almost. And then we look at how the map ended, where Tox was making a crazy comeback and was one frag short.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to ask the question, if Tox just had that same level of discipline and care from the get-go, there's always a potential that Tox, he is a player that can sometimes take his foot off the gas. If he has something secure and he has something won, there's always the potential that at the start of the map where it's like, okay, well, I've got the 2-0, so I've won now. So there's always the chance at the start of this map it was, okay, I'm just going to be aggressive at this point, or I'm going to maybe push hard. There's always the potential here that he wouldn't have done that had it been a more vital map to win.
Yeah.
But that in itself is kind of one of the problems of Toxic, that the moment he takes his foot off the gas pedal, he gives things up. And then when he starts trying again, you're in that position where, Base, like, this is still Base you're against. He will absolutely destroy you if you are not at 150% care.
I really think that that's Tox's biggest issue. Just like not being able to have the discipline to stay away from certain fights. And then when he feels like he's got the upper hand, even after dying once, he just comes back. And again, and again, and again. And that's what happened right there. Base had 2 frags, Tox had 1. 30 seconds later, Base has 5, Tox still has 1. He just gives up 3 frags, just like that.
At the end of the map, the fact that there was 1 frag in it, that Tox, he was being very patient for a while, had that one moment to get a kill, and that was it. He was mounting a crazy comeback. Had he not given up those frags at the start, who knows? But what it did come down to was just absolutely fantastic play from Base.
Yeah.
Great movement, great evading at the very end. Like, that really was like sublime anarchy movement at the very end. Just to give up, like, most angles weren't even there.
Yeah.
Even for Tox, like, he couldn't even take a shot because there was nothing there. But that does mean, though, fundamentally, Tox does walk away from today with a 2-1 victory, which is a great chunk of points for him.
Absolutely.
All the same. And Base just maintains his high leaderboard position. So this was a matchup that Tox definitely needed to win. And congratulations for getting that victory, dude. We're going to go for a quick break and set up our next few set of games. Thanks for joining us so far. This is week number 8 of Stage 2 of Quake Pro League, and we will be right back.